The morning sun glowed warmly over the city of Lagos, casting golden light across its bustling streets. The air was alive with sounds, car horns blaring, street vendors calling out, and birds chirping in the swaying trees. Among the crowd, a cheerful little girl named Ella walked with a spring in her step, her school bag bouncing on her back. Ella was only 9 years old, but her heart was as big as the sky. She loved noticing things other people didn't see. The lonely cat hiding under a cart, the shiny pebble on the sidewalk, or the quiet old man sitting on the same park bench every morning. That day, as Ella made her way to school, she carried a loaf of bread in her bag. Her mom had baked it fresh that morning, wrapping it in a soft cloth so it would stay warm. The smell of the bread was so delicious that Ella's stomach grumbled as she walked. When she passed the park, her feet slowed. The old man was there again. His clothes were tattered, and his shoes were falling apart. He sat slouched on the bench, looking at the ground. People hurried past him, pretending not to see. Ella stopped and tilted her head, watching him. Her mom had told her never to talk to strangers, but something about this man made her feel he wasn't dangerous. He looked sad and lonely, like he needed someone to care. She stepped closer. "Good morning, sir," she said softly. The man raised his head, and his eyes, though tired, seemed to sparkle. "Good morning, child," he said in a deep, scratchy voice. Ella hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out the loaf of bread. "Would you like this? My mom made it. It's really good." The man stared at her, surprised. Slowly, he reached out and took the bread with hands that trembled. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "You have a kind heart." Ella smiled, a little shy but happy. "You're welcome." The man broke off a piece of the bread and took a bite. As he chewed, something strange began to happen. A soft breeze swirled around them, rustling the leaves in the trees. The man sat up straighter, and his ragged clothes seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. His eyes, once dull, now gleamed like gold. "Ella," he said, his voice suddenly smooth and strong, "you have done what many others would not. Your kindness deserves a reward." Ella blinked, unsure of what he meant. "A reward?" The man nodded. "Yes, I will give you a gift, one that will change your life. But remember, great power comes with responsibility." Before Ella could ask what he meant, the man reached out and touched her forehead lightly with his hand. His palm was rough, but the moment it touched her, she felt a cool breeze rush through her head, as if a window had been opened in her mind. When the man pulled his hand away, the world around her seemed brighter, clearer. "What did you do?" Ella whispered. "I opened a door," he said with a mysterious smile. "A door between this world and the next. You will understand soon." Then, as suddenly as the breeze had come, the man stood up. "Be brave, Ella," he said, "and use your gift wisely." Before she could say anything, the man walked away. She blinked, and he was gone, as if he had vanished into thin air. Ella stood there, her heart racing. She didn't understand what had just happened, but something told her life was about to change in ways she couldn't imagine. The rest of the day passed in a blur for Ella. At school, she couldn't focus on her lessons. Her teacher, Miss Grace, even had to tap her desk gently. "Ella, are you dreaming?" Miss Grace asked with a soft smile. Ella shook her head quickly. "No, ma'am. I'm sorry." But the truth was, she was distracted. She couldn't stop thinking about the strange old man in the park and the cool feeling of his hand on her forehead. What did he mean by opening a door? And what kind of gift had he given her? When the school bell rang, Ella walked home slowly, her thoughts swirling like the leaves in the breeze. She couldn't bring herself to tell her mom about what had happened, afraid her mom might scold her for talking to a stranger. By the time night fell, Ella was tucked into her small bed in the cozy room she shared with her younger brother, Daniel. Daniel was already snoring softly, his little chest rising and falling. The room was dark except for the faint moonlight streaming through the window. Ella closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but her mind wouldn't rest. Then, just as she was about to drift off, she heard it, a faint whisper. "Ella." Her eyes snapped open. She sat up quickly, her heart thudding in her chest. "Daniel," she whispered, looking over at her brother. But he was fast asleep, clutching his stuffed elephant. "Ella," the voice came again, soft and gentle, like the rustling of leaves. It wasn't coming from inside the room. It was coming from somewhere else. Swallowing her fear, Ella swung her legs out of bed and tiptoed to the window. The whispering grew louder as she approached, though it still sounded like it was far away. Ella, come closer. Her hands trembled as she reached for the window latch. Slowly, she pushed the window open. The cool night air rushed in, and for a moment, everything was silent. Then she saw her. Outside, bathed in the silver light of the moon, stood a woman. Her figure was faint, almost see-through, and she shimmered like water. She was wearing a long, flowing dress, and her hair was tied in a way that reminded Ella of the pictures of her grandmother. "Grandma Rose," Ella whispered, her voice shaking. The figure smiled and nodded. "Yes, my dear, it's me." Ella felt tears prick her eyes. Her Grandma Rose had passed away 2 years ago, and not a day went by that Ella didn't miss her warm hugs and gentle laughter. "But how? How are you here?" The woman stepped closer, her form glowing softly. "The man in the park opened a door for you, Ella. You can see me now because of the gift he gave you. You have the power to speak to those who have passed on." Ella's mouth fell open. I don't understand. Why me?" Grandma Rose knelt down so her face was level with Ella's. "Because your heart is pure and you care about others. This gift will help you bring peace to people who need it. But be careful, my darling. Not everyone will understand." Ella wiped her eyes, her mind spinning with questions. "Does this mean I can talk to you whenever I want?" Grandma Rose hesitated, smile turning sad. "Not always, Ella. This gift is powerful, but it comes with limits. I am here now because I have something to tell you." Ella leaned forward eagerly. "What is it?" "There's something hidden in our family, a secret that has been buried for many years. You must find it, Ella. It's the key to understanding your gift and protecting your family." "A secret?" Ella's voice was barely a whisper. "What kind of secret?" Before Grandma Rose could answer, a sudden gust of wind blew through the room, rattling the window. Ella blinked, and when she opened her eyes, her grandmother was gone. "Grandma!" Ella called, but there was no reply. The room was still and quiet, except for the sound of Daniel's soft snoring. Ella shut the window and climbed back into bed, pulling the blanket up to her chin. Her heart was racing, and her mind was full of questions. What was the secret her grandmother had mentioned? And what did it have to do with her new gift? As she drifted off to sleep, one thing was certain: her life would never be the same again. The next morning, Ella woke up with a memory of her grandmother's visit fresh in her mind. At first, she thought it might have been a dream, but the cool breeze she felt, the sound of her grandmother's voice, and the warmth in her heart told her it was real. As she got ready for school, she kept glancing at Daniel, who was munching happily on a piece of yam. "Do you think people can talk to someone after they're gone?" she asked, her voice quiet. Daniel shrugged, not looking up. "Like ghosts? Maybe, but that's scary, Ella." He made a face, his mouth full of food. Ella forced a smile and said no more. She wanted to tell her mom about Grandma Rose's visit, but she was afraid. What if Mom didn't believe her? What if she thought Ella was making it up? All day at school, Ella found it hard to concentrate. Her teacher's words blurred together, and her classmates' chatter felt far away. She kept thinking about the secret her grandmother had mentioned. What could it be? When the final bell rang, Ella walked home quickly, her mind racing. The house was quiet when she arrived. Mom was at work, and Daniel was playing outside with his friends. Ella went straight to her grandmother's old room, now used for storing things. The door creaked as she pushed it open. Dust danced in the sunlight streaming through the small window. Ella looked around at the stacks of old boxes, folded blankets, and the small wooden table her grandmother used to sit at. "Okay, Grandma," Ella whispered. "If there's a secret, I'll find it." She began opening boxes and rummaging through their contents. Most of them were filled with old clothes, books, and papers. But then she spotted something unusual. In the corner of the room, tucked under a faded shawl, was a small wooden chest. Ella pulled it out, her heart pounding. The chest was locked, but the lock was rusty and weak. With a little tug, it popped open. Inside were a few carefully wrapped items. Ella unfolded the first cloth to find a necklace with a pendant shaped like a bird. The bird's wings were spread wide, and its tiny eyes were made of blue stones. She touched it gently, feeling its cool surface. Next, she found a stack of letters tied with a red ribbon. The paper was yellowed with age, and the handwriting was elegant but slightly shaky. Ella opened the first letter and began to read. "My dearest Rose, I hope this letter finds you well. I know things have been difficult since I left, but I promise I will return soon. Keep the pendant safe. It holds the key to our family's legacy. Never let anyone else have it, and if something happens to me, pass it on to someone you trust. All my love, James." Ella frowned. "James," she said aloud. She didn't remember anyone named James in her family. Who was he? And what did he mean by the key to our family's legacy? Before she could read more, a loud knock came from downstairs. Ella jumped, almost dropping the letter. "Ella, are you home?" her mom called. Ella quickly placed the letters and the necklace back in the chest and pushed it under the shawl. She'd have to come back later to read more. "I'm here, Mom," she shouted, running down the stairs. Her mom was standing in the doorway, holding a bag of groceries. She gave Ella a tired smile. "Can you help me with these?" "Sure," Ella said, taking one of the bags. As they put the groceries away, Ella couldn't stop thinking about the letter. She wanted to ask her mom about Grandma Rose and James, but she didn't know how to bring it up without raising suspicion. Later that night, as Ella lay in bed, she held the image of the bird pendant in her mind. The soft whisper of her grandmother's voice echoed in her ears. "There's something hidden in our family." Ella didn't know what it all meant, but she was determined to find out. The next day, Ella could barely wait for school to end. Every minute seemed to crawl by, and the questions swirling in her mind made it impossible to focus. Who was James? Why was the bird pendant so important? And what did her grandmother mean by a family secret? Finally, the bell rang, and Ella bolted out of class. Instead of walking home with her friends, she hurried back to the little room where she had found the chest. She closed the door behind her and knelt on the wooden floor. The chest was exactly where she had left it, hidden beneath the old shawl. Ella opened it again and pulled out the bird pendant. She turned it over in her hands, studying its intricate design. The bird's wings were carved with tiny feathers, and its blue stone eyes seemed to shimmer in the light. As she held it, a strange sensation washed over her, like the cool breeze she had felt in the park. For a moment, she thought she heard a faint whisper, but when she looked around, the room was silent. "Is this part of the gift?" she wondered aloud. She placed the pendant around her neck, and as soon as it touched her skin, the whispers grew louder. They weren't scary, they were soft, almost like a song. Closing her eyes, Ella focused on the sound. Ella, the voice was familiar. It was her grandmother again. "Yes, Grandma," she whispered. "The pendant is special," her grandmother's voice said. "It was made long ago by our ancestors. It holds the power to see beyond what others can. Use it wisely, my dear." Ella opened her eyes and looked at the pendant again. "But what am I supposed to do with it? And who is James?" There was no answer. The whispers faded, leaving Ella alone with her thoughts. She turned her attention back to the letters in the chest. The one she had read mentioned the pendant, but she hadn't finished the rest. She untied the red ribbon and picked up another letter. This one was shorter. "Dear Rose, the danger grows closer every day. I fear for your safety. Keep the pendant hidden at all costs. It is more than just a piece of jewelry. It holds the key to our family's past and future. If you are ever in need, trust the spirit of the bird. It will guide you. Your loving brother, James." Ella's heart raced. Her brother, she said aloud. She had never heard her mom or grandmother talk about a brother named James. Why was he a secret? The last part of the letter puzzled her the most. Trust the spirit of the bird. What did that mean? Ella looked down at the pendant again. The blue stones in the bird's eyes seemed to sparkle more brightly now. She held it tightly and closed her eyes. "If you're real," she whispered, "show me something." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the room grew cold, and a soft glow surrounded the pendant. The light grew brighter until Ella had to shield her eyes. When the glow faded, she found herself no longer in her grandmother's old room. She was standing in a vast forest, the trees towering high above her. Their branches swayed gently, though there was no wind. The air was filled with the sound of birdsong, and the ground beneath her feet was soft with moss. "Where am I?" she whispered, turning in a circle. A shadow passed overhead, and Ella looked up to see a large bird soaring through the sky. Its wings were wide and graceful, and its feathers glimmered like the pendant she wore. The bird circled once, then swooped down and landed a few feet in front of her. It was even more magnificent up close, with eyes that shone like sapphires. "Ella," the bird said in a gentle but powerful voice, "you have called upon me." Ella's jaw dropped. "You can talk." The bird nodded. "I am the guardian of your family's legacy. You have awakened the pendant's power, and I am here to guide you." "Guide me where?" Ella asked, still trying to make sense of what was happening. "To uncover the truth," the bird replied. "There is much you do not know, and the answers lie within your family's past. But be warned, the path will not be easy." Ella took a deep breath. "I'm ready," she said, though her voice wavered slightly. The bird tilted its head, as if studying her. "Courage and kindness brought you here. Those same qualities will see you through. Follow me." The bird spread its wings and took off, flying low through the forest. Ella ran after it, her feet barely touching the ground. She didn't know where the bird was taking her, but she felt a strange sense of purpose, as if she were finally starting to understand her gift. The forest grew darker as they went deeper, the trees closing in like a tunnel. In the distance, Ella saw a faint light flickering. The bird slowed and landed beside her. "This is where your journey begins," it said. "Beyond that light, you will find the truth. But be careful. There are those who would do anything to keep it hidden." Ella nodded, clutching the pendant. She stepped toward the light, her heart pounding with both fear and excitement. Whatever lay ahead, she knew she had to face it.